Hello and welcome back to In the Kitchen with Diabetes Canada, presented by Manulife. I'm Marilyn Smith. I'm a professional home economist. I am the self-proclaimed queen of fiber and the creator of the now famous Fart Walk. Yeah, I got to just remind you that the hats are going to be off sale on Saturday. So if you want one, we're going to pop the link into the chat. You got to get your Fart Walk hat while you can. And I'm so excited to be back here for our last show on desserts. And let's take it away, Katie, wherever you are.
Right over here. Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Brunke. I'm a registered dietitian, a certified diabetes educator, and professional home economist. I work in downtown Toronto in a community health center. Diabetes is kind of my world and has been for the last 7 years professionally, and also, experiencing diabetes in my family as well has driven my passion for this work. So really happy to be here, really excited to be on the fourth week and ending on a sweet note, because yes, all foods fit. So take it away, Kayla.
Well said, Katie. Thank you both. My name is Kayla Runka. I work at Diabetes Canada and I will be your moderator. This is the last week of our 4-week series, and tonight is nothing but desserts. We did save the best for last. Over the past 4 weeks, we've showcased 2 recipes each week, added in a bonus recipe, and talked a lot about nutrition and diabetes. As with each week, you will receive the recording along with access to the recipes and nutrition resource next Monday. You will also receive an email the following Monday on December 9th with links to all 4 of the landing pages for each of the weeks. So if you wanted to just save that email, you can go back and look at the recordings and access the recipes and resources as long as you like. We will do our best to get to your questions. We ask that any questions are related to food or nutrition and that you keep the questions generic. We're unable to answer individual diet or diabetes related questions in this format. I've been saying week after week that we'll figure out a way to answer all the questions that have been posted in the chat. And with the help of Marilyn and Katie, we have done an FAQ document for each week so far that will be added to those landing pages that you will receive on December 9th. So be sure to use those links to check back soon. It may take us a week or so to get all those questions posted, but they will be there for you to go back and review at your desire. For anyone who might require closed captioning, we have activated that feature for you, and you can enable the feature on your own device. The sessions are being recorded and will be shared on our website and YouTube channel for on-demand viewing. Any questions posed in the chat will be visible to only those attending live today and will not be used in the recording in any way. We ask that your comments and reactions that you share be affirming and positive and to the benefit of all attendees. Diabetes Canada will not tolerate disruptive comments or behavior and will take the necessary steps to ensure that this learning space remains comfortable for all. To ask a question, please post it in the chat located at the bottom of your screen. And unfortunately, we will not be addressing raised hands today. Last but not least, events like this would not be possible without the support of our generous partner. In the Kitchen is proudly brought to you by our presenting partner, Manulife. We extend our heartfelt thanks to Manulife for their ongoing commitment to the diabetes community and their dedication to helping Canadians live longer, better, and healthier lives. And over to you, Marilyn.
Thank you. Okay, I forgot to mention, did I say I was a professional home economist? I'm not just another pretty face. And that I'm the author of Peace, Love, and Fiber, my 8th cookbook. Okay, let's get going. Thank you for the people who DM me or have been posting the recipes on Instagram and tagging me. I am thrilled that you're using the recipes. Yay. And I know you're going to be making this one. So I'm going to make lemon squares first. And so you need a food processor for this. So if you don't have a food processor, then ask Santa for one, okay? The first ingredient is 3/4 of a cup of ground almonds. And this is not almond flour. So that's very different. Almond flour is very, very fine. These are actually whole almonds that I ground up in my food processor. It's really loud and noisy, so I didn't want to show you that. But trust me, it's going to take 3, maybe almost 5 minutes. You just don't want to turn it into almond butter. So keep looking at it. When they're pulsed up and they look nice and fine, you're going to add 3/4 of a cup of oats. Now, this can be made into a gluten-free dessert. All oats are naturally gluten-free, but if they're processed in a facility that had gluten, like they had wheat or barley in it, then they might have gluten on them. So you have to buy it'll say gluten-free rolled oats. All right. So this is a Canadian company that I really love, but there are other companies that you can get gluten-free oats. And so if you know anybody that has celiac, and you're going to invite them over for dinner, this is going to be a fabulous dessert. So I'm going to put this on. It's going to be a little bit noisy. I used to do this bit when I was in a high school teacher, and whenever this went on, I would do this. And that's on the quiz, and people would freak out, right? Anyway, so yes, I was slightly evil. It calls for quick oats, but it's harder to find quick oats in gluten-free, although this company does make them. So you want to pulse it until it's pretty fine. And once it looks kind of like, and you see that it kind of looks like sand, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of oil and 2 tablespoons of honey. And the 2 tablespoons of oil, whenever you're going to be measuring honey and oil in the same recipe, always measure the oil first, even if it doesn't say so. The reason being is that the oil will help the honey, kind of lubricates the measuring spoon, and it's going to slide out of the spoon. Can you see that it just sort of, oh, isn't that so cool? We'll do it now. Do not measure the honey over your mixer. I am a trained professional, and you can totally mess this up and spill it in. And you don't want to add too much. You want to add exactly your 2 tablespoons, or this will become too wet. And as you can see, it's all gone. It's magic. And then we're going to pulse it one more time.
Marilyn, can I ask a quick question from the chat? Someone's
Yes.
wondering if you could use other nuts such as cashews instead of the almonds.
Okay, I wouldn't use cashews. The main reason that they have a very kind of not meaty, but they don't have the same kind of taste as an almond, which I mean, they're all different, but they tend to be more greasy. I would substitute either a pecan or a walnut if you don't like almonds or you can't find the almond. But yeah, I wouldn't put cashews in them. And not that I'm a big cashew fan. And Marilyn's walked off the stage, and she'll be back in a minute. And I'm back. Yeah, I would not use cashews, but yeah, walnuts and pecans. I don't think
Okay.
it would go very good with peanuts either. Katie, what do you
Okay.
think?
Oh, I was thinking walnuts.
Walnuts, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, also because they have, those great omega-3 fatty acids that we all want more of. So that would be probably my go-to. Also love pecans, which are super high in antioxidants.
Yes.
Good.
See, so
Um,
all nuts are good for us, but different. So we need to mix them up, right? I mean, you could literally do pecan, walnut, almond if you wanted to. I mean, that would be really
Mm.
fun too. So, okay, sorry, I
That
didn't mean
sounds
to cut you
amazing.
off.
No, that sounds amazing. Now I think I'm going to have to go make these again. A lot of questions in the chat, as I anticipated. What if you're allergic to nuts? So I put in the chat a few times to everyone that there is a substitution. You can substitute regular flour for the almonds, and I've looked it up on a reputable source. So we put it in there. We did not test it with flour, but I've given instructions on how much you could try to substitute, and then the ability to add a little bit more if you need to. So I've posted it in the chat multiple times now, so hopefully everybody can see that if you have a nut.
But I think the main reason for using ground almonds instead of flour, or instead of half the flour, is because you're adding protein and you're adding fiber. So you're reducing the amount of total carbohydrate. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of the baking actually to reduce those carbohydrates uses almond flour. And almond flour is getting a really big heyday. It's quite expensive though. So if you want to experiment, but do not ever just substitute all almond flour for all flour, because flour has gluten in it and you're going to lose the structure. So this particular recipe doesn't have to rise up, so it's going to be okay. Now, I don't know whether you noticed, but I scrunched up my parchment paper again. And in baking, if you're going to use it for baking, you want to pat all the water off. So I was patting it off while Kayla was asking me the question. So, okay, so once this looks like a paste, kind of, it's all got together kind of like a ball, we're going to put it into the pan. And I like using my hands. It's okay. I wash them before. I'm going to wash them after too. And then you just spread it around and pat it in really well. Meanwhile, I've got the oven at 325. And just a big tip, baking is a science. You can't go willy-nilly and go, oh, I didn't have any oats. So, I used, I don't know, what would you use? Cereal? And no, don't do that. Okay. So you want to really follow a recipe when it comes to baking. because it's a combination of ingredients and substance and structure, and it's science, and so you don't want to mess science up. Now I'm really patting this in really well, because you want to make sure that you can't see the parchment paper on the bottom. And there you go. It's a little bit sticky. If it gets sticky, just get a clean dishcloth and get your hands a little bit moist, and then it'll pat in better. Okay, so when it's all patted in, it should look like that. And then this is a cool tip. We're going to do the rest of the ingredients in the same food processor. So you only use one dish. Oh, isn't that genius? Look, I'm saving you washing dishes as well. All right. So the next one is the filling we're going to be using is 4 large eggs, which I already cracked so that we wouldn't have to watch that because that's boring. So 4 eggs go into it. Now, if you don't want to, if you want to do this in a separate bowl, you can, but why? Why would you do that? And then Aunt Marilyn's off the camera again, getting the rest of the ingredients. I'm back. I have a lovely girl. Her name is Siobhan. She's my voiceover girl. We're going to add, I'm lying. Anyway, we're adding 3/4 of a cup of fresh lemon juice. We're adding the zest of one of them. Now that's about 3 or 4 lemons, the zest of one of the lemons. And then we're adding a 1/2 a cup of sugar. So Katie, while I whirl this up, and we're also going to be adding 1.5 tablespoons of more ground almonds to add some more protein and fiber. Do you want to talk about, people get all freaked out with you're living with diabetes. Oh, I can't have a sugary dessert. Do you want to just talk about, how we can fit this into our diet? Because I've always said if someone says you can't have a treat, they shouldn't be your friend. So, I think treats are important in your life, and we really need to enjoy them. So do you want to just talk about that while I whirl this
I'm
up?
just going to jump into even go further back on sugar and diabetes. There's lots of questions in the chat, white sugar question mark, so, or honey and that kind of thing. So maybe back up even further than that, Katie.
Okay, we'll roll this train back. So sugar comes in many different forms: white sugar, brown sugar, honey, molasses, maple syrup. They're all forms of sugar, and some are a little bit more processed than others. Our body doesn't really care. When we intake these sugars, it's all pretty much processed in the body and absorbed in the same way. So it's not like one is better than the other. I would focus more on the amounts that you're having, because we know that sugar, especially when we're not eating foods with protein and fiber, will increase our blood sugar. That being said, it's okay to have sugar sometimes. The general recommendation from Diabetes Canada, as well as Health Canada, is to try and limit your intake to less than 10% of your overall calories per day. So for somebody that's eating about a 2,000 calorie diet, that is roughly 12 teaspoons. And if you think about that, that's kind of a lot of sugar. Really, that's pretty generous. I think if we're trying to really tighten up our blood sugar management, and we're thinking about balance and healthy eating in general, a little bit less is probably a better idea. And maybe, some days are 12 teaspoon days and other days are less. The American Heart Association recommends 6 teaspoons for women of added sugar per day and 9 teaspoons for men. So a bit less. Added sugar is sugar that is physically added to the foods. It's not naturally occurring. Naturally occurring is in fruits, it's in milk, and yes, it is sugar, but it's also coming in a package of fiber and protein. So those tend to be a little bit, better for us. But
Katie,
yeah,
I love that you brought up added sugar versus naturally occurring, because in Peace, Love, and Fiber, Katie did the nutritional breakdowns. And back then we counted carbs. We don't do that so much. But I asked her to do added sugars, and then so that you could see what was naturally occurring versus what was the added. And I think that's a really important thing to know as for all of us. Okay, just before you go on, Katie, I whirled this up. I'm just going to pour this right into the base, and then very carefully, now this is the tricky part, do not let the blade fall into the thing. So I just put my little spatula right on top of the blade so that it doesn't fall into and I have done that numerous times. So you can pull it out if you want, but anyway, that's one of my little tips. And into the oven it goes for 25 to 28 minutes. I know that's really a weird number, but And you've got to go really carefully because it's really wiggly. And it should go in the center of the oven. Don't put it just in the front. And the rack should be in the middle of the rack should be in the middle of the oven. People bake on the bottom shelf, and I go, anyway, or they bake on the top shelf. The middle shelf, and then whatever you put in should be in the middle of that rack. Okay, Katie, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, that's all good. I was actually going to show this. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is roughly 10 teaspoons of sugar. So 12 is a little bit more than that. And if you think about how much this actually is, it's quite a bit. So I think that's very reasonable. Again, I think less is a better idea, but certainly you can fit treats into your diet. And Marilyn and I were talking earlier about treats versus snacks. They are different.
Yes.
Marilyn, what's your take on a treat
So,
versus a snack?
Okay, so my spin has always been that a snack should be, part of your healthy intake for the day. So for me, snacks are very often fruit and nuts, or sometimes they're hummus and vegetables, but they're adding to my general long-term health. What I want to, I want to age wonderfully. So I want to keep doing that and support my body. Where a treat, well, when I told them that when I was growing up, a treat was you got birthday cake, or if somebody in your immediate family won the Nobel Peace Prize, which never happened. So, I mean, a treat for us was really, really special. And so I just think that we should be having treats. It's okay, but you can't eat treats every single day, all the time. So Katie had a wonderful spin on this. Katie, tell us about and just before you do. So when this comes out of the oven, when it's completely cooled, you're going to lift it out of the pan, and then you're going to put it onto a surface, because we're going to slice it up into, there's 12 equal portions. And this is really important because, we talked about size matters. So for 12 portions, you want to go right down the middle for one. And I'm going to show you a little food stylist tip. So you see all the guck on the knife? So I just rinsed off my clean dishcloth, and you're going to wipe the knife after every single slice so that you don't get crumbs all over the edges. And this is when, you see people who are food stylists on TV shows. This is how they get the no crumb edge. Okay, go for it, Katie.
So a treat is special, right? So if you're having treats every day, it's no longer special.
Yeah.
Yeah. A snack is very different, as Marilyn was saying. It's got protein, it's got carbohydrate, it's balanced, it's adding to your overall nutrition and intake for the day. A treat, I think, if it's a special occasion or it's, once a week thing, you can absolutely fit it into your lifestyle. I would say consider how much activity you're doing, because it is going to increase your blood sugar. Eating treats on a regular basis is going to add to your overall caloric intake. So if weight management is a concern for you, then that's something we want to be thinking about. Maybe using an artificial sweetener or a sugar alternative, if you're eating sugar all the time, could be a better option, because it won't be increasing your blood sugar to the same extent, and it's lower in calories. So these are all considerations we want to be thinking about when we're having treats.
All right. Well, here's the first one. So I love this. This is like a palette knife. I love this. It's like a little flipper. And so once they're all sliced up into your 12 equal pieces, then to serve it, I mean, it looks kind of sad there, but you can always add a couple of berries. And this is fantastic. I got to tell you, it is so good. I wish I had come up with this recipe. I didn't, but it's delicious. I love it. It freezes fantastic. And I just want to show you a little tip on freezing. So if you put a piece of parchment paper and you do like a little package, now I just put that one in there for the really good show and tell, but Christmas is coming. And so, or, the holidays. And so I've just got all of these little guys in this little parchment sleeve, and then you freeze them like that. And when these guys are frozen, then I can put that one on top. It's not going to go all smushy. And so when my friends come over who have celiac, I have a dessert for them, but I also have a dessert for me, which I'm going to have right now. Okay. I'm telling you, if
Marilyn.
you like lemon, It's not, it's like tart, sweet, and a little raspberry. Come
I
off
can
it. It's
be at
so
your house
good.
soon. How
You
soon?
can. You both can. Come on over. The place is crawling with lemon squares. Okay.
Oh, love it. Okay, are you setting up for the next one then? Can
Yep.
I ask
Yep.
Katie some questions from the
Yes.
chat?
Please do.
Okay, so lots of questions about artificial sweeteners, Katie. Of course, the WHO put some caution out recently. Some people are a little bit worried about it. Do you maybe want to just give a bit of background on artificial sweeteners? And for those of you, we also have someone from our info team who's been posting a sugars and sweeteners document in the chat. So that outlines on our website a bunch more information about different sugars and artificial sweeteners, nutritive, non-nutritive, and sugar containing sweeteners. So over to you, Kate.
Yeah, so there is a difference. Nutritive sweeteners are things like agave, they contain calories, they have some carbohydrate in them. Non-nutritive sweeteners are artificial sweeteners. So those are 0 calorie, 0 sugar or carbs in them. And I think they have a place in the diet if you want to use them. Each one has a specific amount that you want to limit to for usually digestive reasons. If you overdo it with things like sugar alcohols, for instance, if you go above 10 grams per day, you're going to be feeling bloated and gassy and not good. I I tend to think that if you can avoid having them every day, that's probably a good thing. They do over time with high consumption affect our gut bacteria. So we know that we want a good, healthy, diverse population of bacteria in our gut. And over time, some some non-nutritive sweeteners can alter what that bacteria population looks like, and they can do all kinds of different things. So we want variety in our diet. Having too much of anything overall is never ideal. We want to be alternating the types of sweeteners we're having, alternating eating, um, sugars from things like fruit and milk instead more often so that we're getting that fiber and getting those added vitamins and minerals. But I think a little bit is okay here and there. It's just something I would be mindful of, just like treats, being mindful of how much you're having and how frequently.
Okay, can I just butt in because I think that I can't see very well because of my eyes, but I did see honey come up. And I think people have this misconception that honey is so much better for us, but your body doesn't go, okay, there's a special tube for honey and then there's a special tube for, like white sugar and there's a special tube for brown sugar. Your body, you mentioned it before, your body just recognizes it all as some kind of sugar. And so although honey is a liquid, in other words, so it bakes differently, and the reason I think that the dietary the culinary dietitian used the honey in the base was to stick things together because you're not really using that much fat. So honey can be used as a substitute to stick things together, but just to substitute honey for white sugar, you're not going to really accomplish anything different. And you actually might ruin the texture of a baked good because now you're adding a liquid sugar versus a dry sugar. Yeah, Katie, do you want to just weigh in on that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. So I think there's some misconceptions out there that maple syrup and honey and brown sugar, for whatever reason, people think that's healthier. It's all, at the end of the day, it all just breaks down into different forms of glucose and gets used as glucose in the body. And that's okay. We want things to break down in that way. From a budget, from a budget perspective, I think using honey is going to be more expensive in a recipe versus white sugar. And knowing that they're both going to increase your blood sugar pretty much in the same way, I would probably just, yeah, be mindful about things like that as well.
And I think people have this misconception that there's so much more nutrition in honey or so much more nutrition in maple syrup. But I think you'd have to eat like probably 4 gallons of it to actually get those micronutrients. So, I'd rather you get your micronutrients from, the other foods. Like, okay, so I don't even know what honey what the micronutrients would be, but it's probably a better idea to eat real foods than just thinking I'm getting all those nutrients from honey. Okay, can I go on to the chocolate cake?
You can, as long as we can talk about cravings later, because there's a lot of things in the chat with people asking what happens if I want sugar all the time. So
Right. Yeah.
go on to the
Cake.
chocolate cake and we'll get to that at some point.
Okay, great. Yeah, remind us. All right. So uh this chocolate cake is more like a fudgy kind of a brownie kind of a cake, and it's because of the ground almonds. And I am dying to try this. I've just made it this way several times. But I would really like to try it. It uses all-purpose flour. I'm going to try it with whole wheat flour, and I'm also going to try it with oat flour to see whether or not the nuts are going to have more structure. So I will let everybody know how those work. We can send you guys out on email to tell you. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is you need a 9-inch baking pan. Don't be subbing an 8-inch baking like a round cake pan, because it'll just raise up too high, burn your oven. Once I made it in an 8-inch pan because I couldn't find my 9-inch one, and I have arthritis in my thumbs, and when I pulled it out, it flipped over. And now, seriously, whenever I turn my oven on, it still smells like burnt chocolate cake in my house. So FYI, don't do that, okay? I'm your test dummy. All right, so it calls for a half a teaspoon of canola oil, and this is really important. Now, you could put parchment paper in the bottom if you want, but it's just half a teaspoon. And the reason being is that you want this cake to release from the pan really easily, and it won't release if you don't grease it. And this is even a kind of a heavier pan. It's going to be a mess. So you could put parchment paper if you want, but I'm serious. The oil is perfect. Okay, so I've oiled my pan. And once again, when you're baking, do all that first. Preheat your oven, oil the pan, get all your stuff ready. I have several girlfriends who phone me on a very regular basis. I'm on their speed dial. Would be like, "So Marilyn, I'm baking this, and I just realized I don't have blank." And I'll go, "Well, where are you?" Well, I've already just wrecked. Okay, so like you can't go back after you've added liquid to baking powder. You can't go to the store and try to fix it after that. So you should make sure you have all your ingredients ready. It's like called planning. Okay. Now, so we're gonna do the dry ingredients first, because I don't like washing dishes, and I've told you I don't really wash them. My husband does. But it's just a nice little tip. So, all right, we need a big bowl. I like big bowls. A lot of people try to mix things in little bowls, and it just makes me nuts, because like you got to be so careful if it's in a little bowl. Big bowls, you can just go for it. All right, so the first ingredient is how much? It's blah, 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 boom boom. It is a cup of the ground almonds. So as you can see, they're really lovely, ground up again. I did these in the food processor when it was so noisy. So we've got the ground almonds. Once again, you could use ground pecans or ground walnuts, but the almonds that's what's in the recipe. Then we have 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour. And then we have one of my favorite ingredients, which is natural cocoa powder. And it is a half a cup. Now, I want to talk a little bit about natural cocoa powder versus Dutch cocoa powder. Now, you've probably heard that chocolate is good for you. Yeah. Well, it's only certain chocolates. There's a caveat, okay? And most of us just stop listening after we heard chocolate's good for you. Not all chocolate is created equal. So the natural cocoa powder has not been alkalized. The reason they alkalize cocoa powder is so it's easier to mix up. It's more of for bakers and for cocoa powders, it's more mixable, all right? But that alkalizing destroys 2/3 of the antioxidants that are heart healthy. So when you use other cocoa powders, thinking that you're doing something great for your heart, you're not doing as good as you could. So it's natural. Now, there's lots of different brands. This is the one that I can find in most grocery stores, is Hershey's, but it says natural right on it. Some will say raw, some will say unprocessed, but that's the one you want. You don't want Dutched. And the way it won't say Dutched on the front, usually you have to look on the ingredient list and it'll say Dutch processed or alkalized. Okay, so that's the one that has 2/3 of the antioxidants. It's like, that's a lot of antioxidants to get rid of. So I use cocoa powder a lot instead of chocolate. Like when I make, like people say, I want a hot chocolate. That means you melt chocolate. Cocoa, on the other hand, uses cocoa powder. And so I make a ton of cocoa because cocoa has got magnesium in it. it's a wonderful little thing to have. You could have a cocoa on my Instagram at Marilyn Marlin, Mairlyn Smith. There's a cocoa recipe out of Peace, Love, and Fiber that has the option of using sugar in it or not, but it's got spicy stuff like ginger and hot peppers and cinnamon and stuff. So I don't even add sugar, but if you wanted to, you could, or you could add any kind of sugar you want. But we do have cocoa. My book fell over. My book had a fit. Anyway, we drink cocoa pretty much every day in the winter because it's so wonderful. It makes me happy. Anything that makes me happy, I'm in for. Okay, so that was the cocoa powder story. And then there's 1 tablespoon of baking powder. Okay, so there's all my dry ingredients ready. I whisked it all together. And oh, we are doing so good with time. I could talk forever tonight. And actually remember what I was saying. That's so exciting. And now we're going to do the liquid ingredients. So I love the idea of using baby food prunes or applesauce to help replace some of the fat in baking. I do it in a lot of my muffin recipes. I do it in a ton of things, my chocolate cake, other recipes that I use. And prunes are good for bone health, sidebar. For women who are menopausal, perimenopausal, whatever, when your estrogen leaves the building, the protection of your bones and your heart leaves the building as well. And so by adding prunes, you're getting vitamin K too, but we're vitamin K. But there's been some pretty good research that actually shows that people who eat 4 to 6 prunes a day are helping with their bone health. And so I've been eating prunes for a very long time. And people go, "Oh my God!" But it's a laxative. It's not the fiber in the prunes; it's the fruit sugar, and it's what Katie talked about before. It's got sorbitol actually, which is a naturally occurring fruit sugar. So, Katie, do you want to just talk about that one more time? Just because there's a lot of like candies and stuff that are sweetened with sorbitol, and my mom, I gave her some peppermint patties that were, and I warned her. I said, "Don't have more than 3 a day." And she didn't listen to me and then called me and went, "Oh my God, what the heck was in those candies?" So, like, could you just talk about the power of sorbitol just for everybody
Yes,
as a
for
warning?
sure, for sure. Yeah, so sorbitol is a sugar alcohol, so it's neither sugar nor alcohol. It is naturally occurring in some fruits and vegetables, so it does come into play with prunes. It can have a laxative effect. It can cause some GI discomfort if you're overdoing it. So I guess the 3 peppermint patties was too much. It's added to a lot of different things. So when you see like no sugar added products or no sugar added or sugar free, a lot of times they are adding these sugar alcohols because they can be manufactured as well. They do have a bit of a caloric amount to them. So usually it's about 2 calories per gram, which is about half as much as regular sugar. So if you are trying to like lower your calories, lower the glycemic impact of the food that you're eating, something like a sugar alcohol will help to kind of do those two things. But be warned that too much is not good.
Okay, so I use prunes in a lot of stuff. The baby food prunes that I use, pretty much every large grocery store has their own house brand. So you can look for them in the baby food aisle. And every so often they come on sale and I buy a bunch of them because I use them in one of my muffin recipes as well. You can't use dates instead unless you make a date paste, but you have to add enough water. So it's a whole different cooking experience. So if you want to use dates instead, you're going to have to boil them down with water, process them so that they're kind of watery. Okay. So I have never had success with that, but you could try it if you want to.
And
Okay.
Marilyn, can you just
Yeah.
talk about applesauce too? Because I know we talked about applesauce versus prunes in this, and you have a distinct preference for prunes for a reason. So do you want to just mention that one?
That's a great one, Kayla. Okay, so applesauce is used a lot in baking to replace fat and some of the sugar. You can't replace all the fat or all the sugar because they have a function in baking. They both tenderize the product. So if I took all the fat out of a recipe and used all applesauce or prunes, then I would have basically a brick. The same thing would apply if I took all the sugar out and tried to replace it with the prunes or the applesauce. But I personally think that prunes pair with chocolate way better than applesauce. And so if you want a cake that has less density, then you could use a cup of unsweetened applesauce. But I really think you're missing the boat, because there's this wonderful, it's like this marriage with the prunes and the chocolate, and it just brings out the chocolate better. So it really enhances the half a cup of cocoa powder. So that is my personal preference. And so I'm all about the prunes as well as, the health benefits too. Okay, can I go on with the recipe for 2 secs? Okay, good. All right, so we're adding 1 egg. Never crack an egg over a bowl because you could get, shells in there. You could always crack it into a smaller bowl like I did. And when I was a home ec teacher, I always did that just in case. But anyway, so then we're going to make sure that we don't have any shell. Remember, if you do get any shell, you use another piece of the shell to fish it out because for some reason they attract to each other. We're going to whisk this up. So you see, I use the same whisk as I did the dry. So you only have to use one whisk. How exciting. And then we're adding a half a cup of canola oil or a neutral oil. We don't want to add an oil that has a flavor because it'll compete with all the other flavors in this cake. And then we're going to add a liquid sugar. All right, so we talked about this before, so I wouldn't replace honey for white sugar, and I wouldn't replace I wouldn't replace honey for white sugar, and I wouldn't replace white sugar for honey. And so we're using maple syrup. And the reason the maple syrup, once again, not because it's healthier or it has a less whatever, it's because it's going to enhance the flavor of the chocolate. So always when you're measuring a liquid, do it at eyeball level. My husband said there's actually about a half a cup of maple syrup left in this, and he was right. And I didn't believe him. So I went and bought another one. But anyway, so there's a half a cup of maple syrup goes into here. And once again, because I put the oil in first, it's just going to slide out, whisk that in. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. Okay. In that goes. If you don't have any pure vanilla, I used to like say, "Oh, then don't use it. You're going to go to culinary hell." And I'm a big follower of Cooks Illustrated, and they did a whole test with that, and they really didn't see much difference between the artificial and the real. I mean, the real is more expensive, so if you're on a budget, you could use the artificial. But if you can afford it, then I would totally use the real vanilla. Okay, so you whisk that together. And then we're just gonna pour, I'm gonna go and Marilyn's off again to get a spatula. Got it. And we're just gonna pour that in. And, it's really funny. I see people baking and they don't scrape things out. And I always go, no, it's science. You have to get all of that out to make sure you have the right amount of liquid. Now, this is kind of like a muffin method in the sense that I'm adding the dry ingredients first, and then I'm adding the liquid. And because it's white flour, we don't want to mix the living daylights out of it because we're going to develop the gluten too much. And when we develop the gluten too much, it's going to be tough, and we don't want a tough cake. We're just going to mix it together until there's no dry. And I like using a rubber spatula better than a wooden spoon because I can really get into the bottom of the bowl to see. That's perfect. So you see, I didn't mix the heck out of it. We're going to pour it into the prepared pan. I have 5 minutes on the other one. Oh, darn it. Well, I'll just shove it in there. Okay, so we're going to scrape all that out. And don't be tempted to lick the bowl. So there's nothing wrong with the raw egg. Usually in Canada, we have such a great marketing board. It's the raw flour that you want to be concerned about. So don't be licking this bowl from a food safety aspect. I know you're going to go, oh, I'm not liking Maryland very much right now. So, but we don't want you to lick the bowl. Although I did write a book, my very first cookbook was called Lick the Spoon. So anyway, and then we want to flatten it out a little bit so that you don't want to have got to get another spatula. Oh, dear Lord. Here we go. I just want to scrape that off. And I want to make sure that the top of the cake is on the flattish side so that it's going to rise up the same way. Okay, so I'm going to pop that into the oven along with the lemon squares. It's the same temperature, 325. there's 4 minutes and 40 seconds on the lemon square, and that cake goes into the oven for, I forget how long, 22 to 25 minutes. So I'm going to put it in for 23, and at 4 minutes, I hope I remember. And then I'm going to show you the coolest thing of all. All right, and Marilyn's gone to get her cake stand. All right, and she's back. So I think I think my first ex-husband gave this to me. It was a really nice gift, and I never gave it away because I love it. It's a cake stand with a lid, a dome, and it keeps the cake really fresh. And any cake that's made with nuts actually tastes better a couple of days later because the fat in the cake kind of melds around, and it just becomes richer and denser and more yummy. So if you don't have this wonderful cake stand or a cake stand that has a dome, it's really, I have to lean really forward. When Kayla came on to the pre-show, I was crawling on top of my counter to try to reach my camera. Anyway, oh, it's heck being a 5 foot 1.5 inch person. Okay, so you could use the cake pan after it's cleaned as the dome to keep so you want to get the air off it, but you don't want to put saran or wax paper or plastic because it'll stick. And then when you take it off, it'll rip the top of your cake off. Okay. So putting the clean cake pan upside down on there will act the same as the dome on the cake. All right. So we're just keeping the air away. And then we're gonna cut it. Okay, hang on. Once again, a clean knife. Okay, now this is the one I made on Sunday. It's still fantastic. As you can see, we've been eating it. It's very good. Slice. And I'm going to put it on my plate. And I like serving desserts on little tiny plates because, we eat with our eyes first. And so if you put that on a great big plate, somebody's going to go, well, I think you missed half the cake. So, and once again, any kind of berry, but raspberries taste fantastic on this. And so we'll do the little raspberry mound. And by adding some more fiber to this cake has fiber in it. Now we're adding more with the raspberries. And then a very, very light. So if I was at a restaurant without the berries, it would be like $10. Okay, now I put the berries on, now it's 15. And now 27. Okay, so that's just, how we're plating. But just a little bit of icing sugar kind of, brings it up a notch. You're hardly adding any sugar, but it's the presentation and it's so pretty. And I've got a fork and you don't. I'm so sorry. You're going to be making this. This is worthy of a Christmas dessert for sure.
It's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. And now that you've costed it out for everyone, I think they should start charging their family. At very least, they could accept tips or something when they serve that up.
Mm-mm.
And we forgot to also remind everybody that 10 lucky winners will be drawn after tonight from those who attended live for one of Marilyn's Peace, Love, and Fiber cookbooks signed by the wonderful Marilyn herself. And you will get an email from me, Kayla Runka at diabetes.ca, asking you for your address so that we can mail those out. And because they're cookbooks, we don't even have to rely on Canada Post. So they will be sent out by a courier, I'm told, from our mailroom. So they won't be delayed either. We will not be announcing the winners publicly just because we haven't asked for privacy details. So if you do receive an email from me, that means you won and I need your address. If you do not receive an email, unfortunately, you'll have to come back next year maybe and try and win another one, maybe another time. Or of course, you could always buy one of Marilyn's great cookbooks that are out there.
Okay, so I'm finished for what I have to do. So do you have any questions from the chat or anything that anybody wants to ask?
I do have some questions, but I would like to go back to that other question that I posed to Katie about cravings. So why do cravings happen, I guess, and how can you manage them?
Yeah, so I mean, cravings are pretty natural. They happen to most of us. When it comes to hunger, there's a difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger. And some of these differences have to do with how we feel. So with physical hunger, we're experiencing hunger pangs. So we actually feel like we need to eat. we're not thinking of something specifically that we need to eat. It's different. With emotional hunger, oftentimes it's a very specific craving. So maybe it's chocolate, maybe it's cake, maybe it's what have you. And that's okay. I mean, it's important to honor your hunger, but I think it's also important to recognize if you're actually hungry or if it's more of a feeling that you're having. And so if you're trying to move away from emotional eating, if you feel like this has become like an issue for you or a problem in your life, I think it can be helpful to take a pause and check in with yourself to determine what your hunger level is. Is it because you are feeling some kind of way, or is it because you're actually hungry? And it's okay if you are feeling emotional and you're feeling a little bit stressed and you want to comfort yourself with a sweet treat. Moderation is key. And for some people, it's hard to be moderate about that kind of intake when they are feeling emotional. So I think you have to really know yourself if that's going to be a slippery slope, if there's going to be like overindulgence and guilt and shame and that kind of stuff that comes along with it, then perhaps it's best to just take a breath and give yourself time and space in between those cravings, because cravings are also like a wave. So they will come, they will crest, and they will go. So if you can find something to do instead, go for a walk, take a nice bath, do something you enjoy. For me, it's sewing and quilting. That's my go-to. Go for a fart walk. Whatever you need to do. Maybe distracting yourself can be helpful. Yeah, it's really about mindfulness, being in touch with yourself, in touch with your body, honoring your hunger when you are hungry. If you are not hungry, taking that time to check in with yourself and really like feel what you're feeling and make a decision about it instead of
Katie, I
just
love
reaching
that.
for something.
I,
Yeah.
I love that because for me, every so often, like when I'm tired or when I'm crabby, I'll go, oh my God, I really want chocolate, right? And then I'll go, do you really want chocolate, or are you just mad at somebody, or are you crabby? Like checking in with my feelings and like, are you eating chocolate?
I am.
And then I'll go for a walk. So we go for a lot of fart walks in this house because we eat a lot of fiber. But I've got quite a few neighbors that I'll just check in with. I'll go, hey, like I'm really crabby. Do you want to go for a walk with me? And by the end of like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I come in the house and I'm a different person. So for my mental health, going for a walk, and I do a lot of walks. I think today I've done like 12,000 steps because I went for a big walk this morning, and then I was a bit discombobulated this afternoon because of my concussions. I went for another short walk, and then I went for one before this. And yeah, they just make all the difference in the world to me. And I don't know about you, but I know you quilt. But for me, getting outside and just moving my body, it just feels, it doesn't even have to be fast. You just have to get out of your house, get out. I have my tea out in my garden, because I want to get out of my house. So yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay. Yes. Oh,
Okay.
I got a sidebar.
Okay.
Maple syrup. Once you open your maple syrup, store it in the refrigerator or the freezer. And don't buy the expensive, like the light colored. Get the dark ones. It's cheaper. They have a little bit of a stronger flavor, but you're not going to notice it in the recipe. But I buy mine at Costco, and it's product of Canada. So I'm really happy about that. But always store it in the fridge. Okay. And I'm doing it right now. All right.
All right.
I'd
I'm
like
going
to just
to,
say too
oh yeah.
quickly, if that's okay, that we don't want to vilify foods. Like all foods fit.
Oh.
The only foods you shouldn't eat are the ones that you don't like and the ones that you're allergic to. Other than that, we can make space for it, and it's really just about balance and making sure you're getting enough nutrition every day. You're managing your blood sugars and getting some daily movement in, but all foods fit.
Great, Katie. I
Love
love that
that.
you said that. It's like the takeaway of the whole show. All foods fit.
Yep.
We should get a hashtag with that. All foods fit, and then go for a fart walk. Okay.
A reminder that you will receive that email from this session next Monday. Click on the landing page and the recipes, the recording, and the nutrition resource, which is on healthy snacking, will be right there at your fingertips. If you have not been receiving them, please check your junk, spam, promotions, archives. Someone said it went straight to their deleted folder last week. So check all your folders. It comes from Diabetes Canada, info@diabetes.ca. And again, you will receive a final email on Monday, December 9th, with all 4 of the landing pages for each week. So make sure you check back often for those FAQs. And a last final thank you to our presenting partner, Manulife. In the Kitchen would not have been possible without you. So a big thank you to you. And of course, a huge thank you to both Marilyn and Katie for sharing their kitchen and office and knowledge, along with your fantastic personalities and sense of humor during Diabetes Awareness Month. So to close off, and I will pop back over and see how the poll's doing, I'd love if you two could talk about the importance of finding pleasure and joy in the food that you eat.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine not. I mean, I love eating. I get great pleasure and joy. Now, it's not my only happy place in my life, so I don't get all of my pleasure and joy in my life from the food that I eat, but I don't eat anything I don't love. And as a matter of fact, when it comes to desserts, if it doesn't taste fantastic, I don't even bother finishing it because I only want to eat the good stuff. So I'm I'm not a snob. I just think, why waste? I just want the best. So I would rather have something fantastic, a smaller piece of something fantastic than a big piece of something that is like a reasonable facsimile. Because there's a lot of recipes out there that go, oh, this is so healthy for you. And it's like, blah, bite me. Anyway, I would rather have it be delicious. And so yeah, pleasure and joy when it comes to eating is full front. And for that reason, one of my husband and I, we sit down for dinner every night and we have dinner parties because sharing food is the next level up. And sharing it with friends and family for me is joy. I love making meals for them because then we get to have this wonderful conversation over wonderful food and yeah, it's fun. I mean, Katie and her wife have even been to my house for a wiener roast in the backyard because
Couple
hot dogs
times.
on an open fire is fun too. And so it doesn't have to
With
be
s'mores.
special food. It just has to be fun food. What? Sorry, Katie.
And s'mores.
Oh, and s'mores, Maryland.
That's
No,
right.
there's Maryland's. I used
Marilyn.
my ginger cookie. No, it was a chocolate. Did I? It was that chocolate cookie, I think. Yeah, I think it was.
I think
Yeah, that's
ginger.
got whole wheat flour in it. Yeah, chocolate ginger cookie with the marshmallow. Anyway, okay, Katie, I've talked enough. Your turn.
Yeah, no, all good. I think there's just so much to enjoy about food and eating. It really can engage all of our senses, and I think it's important to slow down. We live in a really fast-paced world, and a lot of times we're not able to take that time to really enjoy our food. It starts with looking at it. You eat with your eyes first. We're lucky that we live in a world where we have so much at our fingertips in terms of like variety and flavors. There's just so much to explore and so much joy that can come from that. And I think when you connect with your food, you connect with yourself, and it's good for your health in so many different ways. And I think life can be short, and I certainly am not going to skip out on the things that I love to eat and love to do because joy is so important to our health, and figuring out where that fits in is going to help you to live a happy and healthy life. So
Love it.
Great
I'll take
message, and me too. And speaking of gratitude, I'm so grateful to have spent Diabetes Awareness Month with all of our great attendees and registrants for the program, but very much feeling grateful for spending it with you, Katie and Marilyn as well. So I wish
Right back at you.
everybody happy, healthy eating, and hopefully we'll see everyone back together again soon.
Thanks for everybody. Thanks to, and Kayla, thank you for reaching out to me. I really appreciate it. This has been a joy for me to do so. And Katie, I love you, but you already know that. So anyway, okay, honey. And we're teaching in class together tomorrow.
Feeling is
Oh,
mutual. That's right.
great.
We're
Oh my
talking
Yep.
about
goodness.
vitamin D. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's happening.
Perfect.
Yes,
Thanks,
yeah.
Right on.
everybody.
Slice.
Enjoy your evening. We'll see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.